Hello out there, YouTube friends. Welcome back to our continuing exploration of my Criterion Collection Blu-rays. I actually do have one DVD squirreled away in there, so that'll be a surprise when we get to it. Before we get started today, I wanted to mention a website that I use quite a bit that I really enjoy, and I would recommend you guys checking out if you're into film and sort of keeping track of what you watch, and that is letterboxd.com, spelled like letter and then box and then just D on the end of it, so letterboxd, one word. I'll link it in the description below, my like page or whatever you want to call it, my profile. And I basically, every time I watch a movie, I log it on there. You can tag stuff. It can calculate stats of all your movies. I'm a huge, big stats like geek. I love to see, the way I rate things and which directors and like which cinematographer I've watched the most of versus which cinematographer I've given the highest star ratings to. It's super geeky stuff. But if you're into that, definitely follow me on that below. You can also keep track of what I'm watching, so maybe it'll give you some hints about what I'm going to talk about on the channel. This first movie we have today is very, very highly rated. I think in the Sight and Sound poll, which is like a BFI poll that they do every 10 years. I think the last one came out in 2012, so we're not due for another poll until 2022. But this movie ranked very highly. They do polls of critics and directors, and I think on the critics poll it was like very close to number one, and that is Tokyo Story, Yasujiro Ozu's Tokyo Story. Ozu is not somebody I'm super duper familiar with. I've probably only ever seen this from him, but he's very well known for his like realist cinema explorations of family dynamics and such in Japanese society. He had a long career. I mean, starting back in silent films, and I think a lot of his really early movies are lost. And then he moved into sound films, and then into color films eventually. And I think this one came out in the 50s, 1953. I don't. Off the top of my head, I'm totally spitballing here, but I think he probably stopped making films or passed away in like the 60s or maybe early 70s. So this was relatively later in his career. This is spine number 217. Criterion, sometimes they're very inconsistent. This one's a digipack, so it has like a little slide out stuff. Sometimes they do clamshells, sometimes they do digipacks, sometimes they do other things. It's a little annoying to have on a shelf, but yeah, like I said, it's a very kind of slow-paced, realistic look at the generational differences in Japan post World War II and how parents lose touch with their children or sort of don't understand what the next generation is versus children's feeling like they need to take care of their parents, and maybe some siblings doing that and not doing that in a family. A common themes that Ozu would kind of switch around, like different ways that family dynamics and group dynamics in Japan kind of affect each other. So I've seen it once. I haven't seen it in a while, but I do remember thinking it was really nice. I'll have to definitely watch it again as soon as I kind of get around to digging into Ozu a bit more. So Tokyo Story, I bet this is a couple people's favorite out there. So yeah, let me know if you're into Ozu and especially Tokyo Story.
思いがけの温泉へも入らしてもろうて。
ああ、思わん散財かけたの。
気持ちですな。
明日一つ早起きてこの辺をずっと歩いてみるか。
そうですな。なんでもこの先の方に景色のところがあるそうですよ。女中さん、そう言うとりました。
そうか。静かな海じゃの。
Up next, we have a beautiful Italian film, and that is Luchino Visconti's The Leopard. I don't know, Il Gatto Pardo. I don't know any Italian, but this is a very lovely film, early 60s, 1963. It's quite long. It's sort of an epic, and it's about a kind of wealthy, gentry sort of nobleman, played by Burt Lancaster, in Italy as the sort of entire social political structure of Italy is changing, and his, I think, nephew, which is Alain Delon, who is one of my absolute favorite actors and just like probably the most handsome man in existence. I just think he's like the most beautiful man ever. But it's kind of about his generation, like taking over and being, revolutionaries, and the sort of the new guard of Italy coming into power as Burt Lancaster, this older character, this, like, I think he's actually a prince, is kind of growing old and watching everything around him change that he knew. Common theme in a lot of these Criterion movies, right? Generational differences. But it's really lovely. It's kind of framed around like a party, like a night at a party where the prince goes and sees all of these young people and sort of realizes that he's past his prime, and that now it's somebody else's turn to take over, and that the formalities and the sort of the things that he once valued about Italian society is no longer there for him. Melancholy, bittersweet, but sort of triumphant at the same time, and it also has a lot of really amazing scenes, kind of like fights and battles going on in Italian Revolution, and like really amazingly filmed, very colorful, big epic set pieces. So very cool movie. Like a little bit of wartime epic and a little bit of thinking man's kind of generational divide. So I would definitely recommend checking it out. The Leopard. Here we have a very large box set. This is the John Cassavetes 5 films box set that Criterion did. It's number 251 through 255. If you can see it on here, it has Opening Night, Killing of a Chinese Bookie, Woman Under the Influence, Faces, and Shadows, spanning from like the 50s all the way until the 70s. Yeah, 1959 to 1977, so pretty significant amount of time. I have not seen any of these yet. The place that I know Cassavetes most from is from Rosemary's Baby, because he's I think his character's name is Guy in Rosemary's Baby, but I know him to be very well renowned for kickstarting the American independent DIY film movement, sort of in the 50s and 60s, being somebody to, I think there's a booklet enclosed with this, which I'm pretty sure starts out with an essay about how Hollywood is like morally bankrupt and not a place for creative people to go. Yeah, he was fiercely independent, fiercely creative, and improvisatory, like really wanting to do things on his own. I think he had like a kind of a collective of people he worked with that all kind of lived together and lived these movies and made them and lived the characters and improvised everything. It's like cinema with heart. It's kind of maybe smaller scale, obviously, than something that Hollywood would do, but I think in Cassavetes' mind, significantly larger in the feelings department, So, yeah, I haven't checked any of these out. I think there's like another maybe one or two Cassavetes movies that Criterion has released. I'm not entirely certain, but this whole big box set I got used is kind of dinged up a little bit, so but I was able to pick it up for a pretty good price. It's actually sort of shifty and falling apart. But yeah, a whole big set of movies, and Cassavetes is somebody eventually I'd like to cover on the channel once I sort of get to know him a little better.
Directed by John Cassavetes, breaks all the barriers of conventional filmmaking. Actually filmed in New York City, Shadows now returns to be hailed by American critics. Esquire's movie critic Dwight MacDonald notes the critical acclaim it has received and says, "For this is a real story of real people living in the shadows of the neon-crazy streets of Manhattan."
This one's a real goodie. This is Eyes Without a Face, in French, Les Yeux Sans Visage, maybe. And it's directed by Georges Franju, 1960. Black and white thriller, tight, 90 minutes, really creepy. This kind of front cover it's not a spoiler or anything, but it kind of borrows one of the most iconic scenes, kind of this masked woman. It's about like a plastic surgeon, I think, or a doctor whose daughter becomes disfigured, and then he goes through all of these lengths to try and get her a new face, and you sort of see her here without her face, the eyes without a face. It is really creepy. It is an excellently paced and put together thriller. I think definitely something that somebody like, I'm pretty sure Guillermo del Toro has actually said before that this is either one of his favorites or a big influence on him. It kind of has that vibe to it, something that maybe he would work on. And yeah, I would highly recommend checking this out without any hesitations. Yeah, just a really tight thriller, super psychologically creepy, and some really awesome kind of images and cinematography that will really stick with you.
Le reflet de ses yeux, de son visage.
Edna, elle s'est échappée.
Historique.
Continuing our ever-present Kurosawa discussion, which I'm pretty sure there's been a Kurosawa film in all of the parts so far. This one is Kagemusha, the 1980 samurai film from Kurosawa. I think this might be the only samurai film from him that I've never seen at all ever. It's later in his career. I think Ran was after it. I'm pretty sure that was maybe even later than this. But this one's from 1980. It's one of his kind of color movies, which is not that common from the time period that he was shooting. It was mostly black and white. Yeah, I don't know that much about it. I know it's kind of like meant to be a little bit more surrealist and has kind of like elements of ghosts, and on the back it says that it's about a peasant who has to impersonate a warlord after he dies. Again, I'm not familiar with it, but it looks really beautiful from the pictures and little clips I've seen. A later period Kurosawa that I want to get into, but I just haven't seen yet. So let me know what you guys think if Kagemusha holds up to the rest of Kurosawa's samurai oeuvre.
A new film by Akira Kurosawa.
Here's another film that I barely know anything about, and another one that I picked up at a used bookstore for like $7, so it was mostly just a blind buy. But that is Jean Renoir's The River from 1951. It says on the back that it's Renoir's first color feature, and it was shot on location in India. So yeah, pretty unusual, I would think, for a French director to be shooting outside of France at that period of time. But I know it's meant to be, from the little I know, kind of a coming-of-age story, and sort of contrasting people's lives with the everlasting nature of the rivers. What is it? Which river is it? The Bengal River. So yeah, kind of like nature's immovable permanence versus humans' temporary suffering. That's sort of a very classic dichotomy to explore in film. Yeah, I haven't seen it. It's meant to be beautifully photographed and quite a lovely movie. So let me know what you guys think. The River, Renoir. I don't have that many of his films up here at all, really. So yeah, just one that I picked up for cheap, and I'll eventually get around to.
Jean Renoir's masterpiece, The River. For those of you who have been asking for something new and different in entertainment, for all of you who enjoy only the finest in motion pictures, The River is especially for you. Jean Renoir's The River, a story of true greatness told against the brilliant background of India.
And last up on the docket is a film that I very recently watched, just probably a week and a half ago, and that is Kihachi Okamoto's The Sword of Doom, or Daibotsu Toge in Japanese. This was a really cool movie. It was meant to be one of three. My buddy told me that it was meant to be the first part of a trilogy, and so it kind of leaves a couple threads unfinished at the end. It's like a little bit unsatisfying. The ending is very abrupt, but it's very interesting. It's two of my favorite, and I think most people would say the greatest Japanese actors from that time period, Toshiro Mifune and Tatsuya Nakadai. He was also in, both of them were also in High and Low, which I talked about a couple episodes ago. It's really quite cool. It's kind of this movie about this immoral sociopathic samurai who's played by Nakadai, and his enemies that he makes, these things that he does that, you know, he's like the best fighter ever, but he has no kind of sense of honor or like kowtowing to anybody. He's just going to walk his own path, and he kind of gets mixed up with different groups and then makes enemies of people's siblings that he killed, and this whole thing comes together. And Toshiro Mifune plays kind of more of a side character as a master of a sword fighting like school dojo in which eventually kind of comes into the picture. He's not, like I said, he's not a huge character, but he has an amazing scene. There's a scene with Mifune fighting a group of guys in the snow that is like, it's just what Japanese cinema is to me. That kind of like amazingly shot, beautifully realized kind of sword fighting scene. It's really, really good. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing's really good. It kind of delves into like, the end kind of goes like a little bit into psychological breakdown stuff, and but the most of it is just like, I guess, a more standard-ish story of different samurai kind of orbiting around each other and sort of causing problems for each other in their different spheres. It's very cool if you're into sword fighting stuff. I would highly recommend The Sword of Doom. Check it out, and let me know what some of your guys' favorite sword fighting films are. That, folks, will wrap us up for today. Hope you're still enjoying this Criterion series. I know I've been saying it for a while, but I do still have some other series of stuff that I'm kind of cooking up and going to start soon. Some ideas for, I think, some fun series and some one-off stuff. So, actually, please let me know if there's anything that you guys specifically would like me to cover in the future. If there's any specific films, directors, genres, or anything like that you would like to see sort of my take on, because I'm open to covering a lot of different stuff. I like to get my hands in all aspects of film, I guess. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next collection video where we get into some excellent goodies. Thanks, guys.